Hello again, retro gamers, and welcome to the Video Game Flashback Podcast. I am your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Video Game Flashback is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps, featuring Spotify. So if you can download and listen to the show via Spotify, that would help this show grow. But either way, it helps the show grow that you're downloading and listening in general. Just Spotify is kind of like the feature, and that's kind of how we may generate a little bit of help from Spotify for podcasters, which is the provider we use. So thank you once and always for downloading and listening to the show. It is a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today in our mini-series, The Summer of Bugs, episode number 17, Centipede. Yep, so instead of Millipede, now we're at Centipede. Centipede is the original of the two, so it's the Pede, the Summer of Pedes. Centipede, Millipede, I guess that's it for Pedes for now. Maybe we'll come up with another bug coming up soon, but at least it's fun to have a Summer of Bugs type of deal here in the month of July. And cover some classic arcade games that were also ported to some really nice classic game systems. Unfortunately, not the NES, but the Game Boy and others. We'll get to that very shortly. We'll talk about the enemies and such as well, as we like to do on a regular basis. Centipede is a 1980, and this is Wikipedia, a 1980 fixed shooter arcade game developed and published by Atari Inc., designed by Donna Bailey and Ed Logg. It was one of the most commercially successful games from the golden age of video games, the golden age of arcade video games. Yep, and that was a great time. Great time. I go back as a very little kid to that era in Chuck E. Cheese and such, when it was, the legendary Chuck E. Cheese, like in the early 80s, there were all these great arcade games there, and they were, for the most part, fresh, new, and exciting at that time. And, man, it's something, at the time, it was the coolest thing in the world, right? Now it would be an even cooler thing when you look back on it, especially if all the arcade cabinets were all healthy and young again. That would be great, rather than kind of older, which unfortunately is the way things are. But, well, if people know how to maintain them and take care of them, that's the good part. Anyhow, yes, it was actually one of the first with a significant female player base. Remember, I talked about that on the last one, where you get more of the pastel look. And I suppose because girls look at bugs and say, ew, so this is a way to actually get rid of them. And again, turn them into mushrooms, just like in the previous game. The primary objective is to shoot all the segments of the centipede that winds down the playing field, and arcade sequel Millipede followed in 1982. Yep, Centipede was ported to Atari's own Atari 2600, Atari 5200, which I do have, but I don't have a functioning controller. I could kind of turn it on and just kind of watch it, which I've done on occasion, but you got to hook stuff up and unhook things, so I don't know. I probably will do it, actually. It's not too bad. Atari 7800, which I actually have the version. I have it on a few ports, a few devices, but the one that I have in front of me right now is the little mini arcade. The little mini arcade, and I'll play it later as well. But it's the mini arcade that I got from Walmart a while back, which I almost never get to go to. But it's actually the 7800 port. It's not the arcade port, unfortunately. But just for fun, yeah, this is what it sounds like. And yeah, the 7800 version is actually really well done. It's incredibly good, actually. So, yeah. We'll get a score on that in the not-too-distant future. Excuse me, so I said Atari 7800. It also came out on the 8-bit family under the Atari Soft label. Apple II, Commodore 64. So that was probably the one where me and my classmate's cousin had a little battle. It was kind of fun. ColecoVision even came out for that. Yep, I have that version as well. The VIC-20, the IBM PC. Whew! Pretty cool. The Game Boy and Game Boy Color were also produced. So much fun. Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. Again, developer Atari. Publisher North America and European Union, Atari. In Japan, it was Kiwako. Designer, like I said, Donna, and I don't think it's a female. It's with only one N, Bailey. Ed Logg, I suppose it could be, though. Arcade, the programmers for the arcade, Donna Bailey and Ed Logg. Atari 8-bit, Dave Gettrue. Platforms, like I said before, yeah, we'll leave that alone. We already talked about those. But now we'll get to the actual release dates. North America, for the arcade, the actual arcade North American release, July 26, 1980. So I was about to turn 1 year of age when that came out. European Union, 1981. Japan, March 1983. Atari 8-bit, North America, 82. 1982 anyway. 2600 and the 5200, interestingly. 1983. So the Atari 8-bit got first dibs on it. 1983 again, it came out for the 2600 and the 5200. It also came out for the Intellivision, which I'm pretty sure I have that version as well. February 1984, Commodore 64, March 1984. And the 7800, it finally came out in 1986 for that one. But the 7800 was kind of to compete to the Nintendo, with the Nintendo, pardon me. Kind of close to it, and we'll talk about the 7800 as we move forward. But this will be the first game review that has 7800 games on it, which is cool. So, or at least a game on it anyway. Again, it's a fixed shooter, 1 to 2 players alternating turns, except on the Commodore 64 version, apparently you can play together and accidentally or intentionally kill your teammate. I guess you can call them a teammate. They kind of are, but if you can accidentally kill them, I suppose it's to be realistic as well. The player controls the small insect-like creature called the Bug Blaster. So in this case, you're basically, I don't know, a bug blaster. Are you like a spray can or something? I know there's a Intellivision game where you're a spray can killing bugs as well. So I guess it's kind of a knockoff of this one. Moved around the bottom area of the screen with a trackball. Fires small darts at a segment of the centipede, advancing from the top of the screen, or to the top of the screen. The centipede comes from there anyway. And it goes through a field of mushrooms. Each segment of the centipede becomes a mushroom when shot. Shooting one of the middle segments split the centipede into 2 pieces, just like Millipede, of course, like we talked about before. Each piece then continues independently on its own way down the screen. So, yeah, that's how that works. The rear piece sprouting its own head. If the head is destroyed, the segment behind it becomes the next head. Shooting a head is worth 100 points, while all the other segments are worth 10. The centipede starts at the top of the screen, traveling either left or right. When it touches a mushroom or reaches the edge of the screen, it descends 1 level and reverses direction. The player can destroy mushrooms 1 point each. Yay. But, it takes 4 shots to destroy a mushroom, so it's kind of a pain. But it's also fun to see the mushroom kind of get damaged a little bit as the graphics kind of improve, well, depending on what version you're playing. Because I remember looking at the mushrooms getting beat up on the Commodore 64 version. I thought it was pretty cool, actually. It's like, oh no, I'm damaging all the mushrooms. What a bummer. So, let's look at the... we'll move around a little bit here. Because if I read too much, you're going to be kind of like, okay, Joey. So, talk about the bad guys, of course. I talked about the centipede already. Yep. So you kind of get the idea there. Spiders, they jump about the playing field in erratic patterns, making them dangerous. Notice it says jump about the playing field, because you know how spiders kind of bounce around. There's a reason why they bounce around. Spiders usually don't do that, unless it's one of those weird kind of spiders that kind of like, I suppose they kind of shoot out their little, like Spider-Man, they shoot out their little web string, you can say, like Spider-Man, right? But that's how they might appear like they're jumping. But there's a reason why this character looks like they're jumping around a little bit. Because, incredibly, the spider was actually originally going to be a grasshopper.
Oh, yeah, right.
You better believe it.
Pretty amazing stuff. So the spider was going to be a grasshopper, and yeah, I've posted the image on the Twitter account at VGF _podcast @VGF_podcast. For some reason, it won't let me share it on Facebook. I thought it did before, but I'll try again possibly. Maybe by the time the show is done, it'll be up there. Hopefully the show is done and released and everything for all of you to listen. But it was going to be a grasshopper, and it looked kind of cool. It's kind of cool having a grasshopper there. We're so used to the spider, but there's nothing like the classic sound of the spider and everything. And ultimately, if I'm going to go in a retro arcade, like there was one called Rusty Quarters, locally in the Twin Cities. Unfortunately, they shut down years ago. And then they brought up a barcade years later now that's still there. I hope it's still there, called Up Down. And it's in Uptown. So it's pretty cool. Up Down in Uptown in the Minneapolis area around Lake Street. Hopefully everything's okay there. It should be. But yeah, it's a barcade, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's doing better, because I guess all people care about is drinking. That's great. But it's a very large, much larger place, and the selection is incredible and all that. So, and the last time I was there was insanely crowded. So it's a good thing. The crowd is annoying. It's annoying when a place is overly crowded, but it's a good thing in terms of you want the business to last. So it's kind of like take the good with the bad. I don't want the business to die. Rusty Quarters was doing fine, but you could tell it was just kind of too small. And I suppose, like I can't even imagine the rent in uptown Minneapolis, how expensive it would be to pay a rent for a place like that. So even though it wasn't that large, where the barcade called Up Down is pretty busy. But to the point of when I go into an arcade or barcade or whatever the heck it would be with retro games like this, Centipede would be one of the very first cabinets I would go to. Absolutely. I'm just Centipede is a must. I have to play Centipede at least once on the way out. Unfortunately, Millipede is not as common as Centipede, so I haven't really seen that one a whole lot in the arcades. I mostly am fortunate enough to have it ported onto the Xbox 360, where it's an actual exact, it's an exact replica of the software. The ROM is the better term to use. It's an exact ROM of the arcade game for both Centipede and Millipede and Asteroids and all that stuff. Asteroids, huh? We'll get back to that one not too long from now, I'm sure. And maybe it'll be a summer arcade rather than a summer of bugs, but Summer of Bugs works for me right now. Again, the spider thing was pretty cool. Fleas can make mushrooms. Fleas can make mushrooms when less than 5 enemies are on the screen. So when they dive bomb down to you, just like those dark paper wasps that come after you in real life, they dive bomb down fleas. They're bees in the Millipede version of the game, like the sequel. There's more bugs in Millipede. That's kind of what I like about it. Plus the fact you have the DDT bomb, so to speak, that'll kill all the bugs around that area of the smoke, basically the smoke cloud, which is DDT. Unfortunately, DDT had a lot of terrible effects that created mutant frogs, basically, with three legs on one side or whatever. It was weird. It would mess up the molecular structure or whatever the term is. It would mess up frogs as they were getting born, laying eggs and such. So it's insane to imagine that kind of stuff happening. But yeah, it really happened back in the 70s. DDT, but I suppose we could put it in Millipede as long as it's not going to mutate frogs or anything in the arcade game, I suppose. Anyhow, fleas, yes, they dive bomb. Scorpions can make mushrooms poisonous and cause problems when a centipede runs into one of these mushrooms, because then the centipede comes down erratically towards the bottom of the screen, which, sometimes is good, but generally I would say it's a really bad thing. So try to kill the scorpion as soon as possible. The scorpion plays a similar role as the earwig in Millipede, the previous game we just talked about, where it goes from left to right or right to left across the screen, and you get the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da effect. Hopefully I can get that in, if humanly possible. But ultimately, of course, the last thing you really want is the centipede, moving around at the bottom of the screen. Because once they get to the bottom area where you are, then it starts doing its left, right, back and forth type of deal. And if you have a bunch of segments of centipede there and not enough room to attack, you're probably not going to survive very long unless you're insanely skilled at the game, which some of you are, and good for you. I can't say I'm an elite talent at Centipede. I would say I'm an intermediate talent at Centipede at best. I wouldn't call myself a beginner, but intermediate. Yay. Of course, there you go. Unfortunately, it's a lot less different enemies in the game. Unfortunately, again, a centipede, spiders, fleas, and scorpions. That's all you got. You don't have the all the other stuff like the back and forth mosquitoes and the dragonflies and all those fun characters and the interesting ladybug that makes a funny sound when she goes up and down. Well, he or she, because it's just a bug. It's called ladybug, but it could be a boy or girl kind of walking around in your area. It can kill you, and of course makes the screen go downward when you shoot it, down one row. But we're not talking about Millipede, unfortunately. Check that episode out if you want to hear it. Hopefully both of these episodes are to your liking and to your enjoyment. So, generally speaking, again, it's a slightly more simple game, but maybe in a way people like that more. Obviously, every time you win a stage, the color changes, and I don't know, I love all the different colors. You get like Atlanta Hawks colors, like red with a little red with like a goldish yellow. It's awesome. You get all the different pastel kind of colors, like a periwinkle, purplish, like you get blue, you get like a turquoise teal kind of color. So very enjoyable. I love how the screen changes color, like all the different mushrooms, the centipede, and all that. So it's enjoyable. Again, I can understand where there might be a feminine crowd, kind of, but I think it appeals to everybody because the colors are actually pretty nice. It's not anything about, yeah. There's nothing wrong with enjoying cool colors in a game. Some people might think pastel colors, okay, I guess, but yeah, I like it. I think it's nice and it brings you back in time. That's the most important part about this show and about these wonderful, wonderful games that can take you back to your childhood or your teenage years if you're like a little bit on the older side of Generation X or even baby boomer level, which is quite possible, believe it or not. Some people's grandparents played these games. Some people they were already like older and they played these. So sounds like a pretty cool grandparent, to be quite honest. Interesting. Yep, interesting. Yeah, I was talking about how the Game Boy and Game Boy Color were also produced, as well as a version for the short-lived Game.com, developed by Handheld Games and published by Tiger Electronics. Is this it? I don't think this is a Tiger Electronic. No, I don't think so. This one doesn't even really say. Boca Raton, Florida. Okay, that's nice. Maybe did Atari actually make this? This device that I'm holding right now, the portable one that I did share on the Facebook page. I don't know. As Bill Guerin of the Minnesota Wild might say, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Why is it always Dumba? Okay, sorry. That's an inside joke here. He'd get mad about now former Minnesota Wild player being traded away. He would get pissed off. Like, why do you want to trade him away? So, nudge, nudge to some of you that are Minnesota Wild fans that might be listening, hopefully. With that said, let's get on to the game itself. I think I've done enough babbling on, and if other topics pop on, other topics that I feel I need to get to, well, I'm either playing the game or in the outro of the show after the fan interaction, or should we call it feedback segment. We'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, as a former Viking coach used to say. With that, yes, let's get on to the game. Let's start off with the arcade, eh? Centipede on arcade. Got to start with the OG or original version, of course, and that is the absolute way to go. We're going to refer to the Xbox 360 version, the port. Otherwise, there's MAME, there's other options, and that you can get that on the console X or whatever the heck. But this one is an actual purchased version, and it's an exact port of the arcade. It comes in a package with Millipede, like I talked about in the previous episode of Video Game Flashback, the Summer of Bugs. And again, apologize about the release of this show being later than some of the, later than I probably originally expected. We're going to go with default difficulty in the original version. There's nothing like seeing the game kind of displaying in the background, kind of doing its automatic look with the high scores and the centipede crawling down, the green centipede, the green mushrooms with the red borders, and of course the iconic spider who was originally going to be a grasshopper, because you can notice it jumps around like a grasshopper might. Maybe a little strangely, but it is what it is. Let's get to the arcade version, of course, released in 1980 from Atari. As the game hath begunneth, the centipede is rolling down like it normally does. Centipede, of course, the spider, the closer it is, the higher the score you get. So it's very similar to Millipede. That might explain why I didn't get as much reaction for this game. Probably should have reviewed this one first. Now that I've babbled enough, we're going to keep playing here. And hope for the best here. I always have a hard time getting the last head, which is annoying as hell. You want the screen color to change, I like that look. No scorpions or anything like that yet, and I'm actually off to a crappy start. Oftentimes it seems like when I'm playing these and reviewing at the same time, it can be pretty challenging. The final head is just a pain in the butt to get. I don't know why. It doesn't speed up or anything. The screen has changed to kind of a pastel color, kind of like maybe like a reverse Charlotte Hornets, kind of a purple pinkish with the teal color in the background. So they look kind of like the Charlotte Hornets, the late 80s, early 90s pastel look. I'd say late 80s. I was able to beat it, but then got killed by the spider. The screen has changed to the Atlanta Hawks. the classic Dominique Wilkins Atlanta Hawks with red and yellow background. And I died so quickly. 5,573 points. It's pathetic. Let's do one more. So, embarrassing start here. We're going to play multiple versions like I talked about. I'm going to be switching around from different systems, which can be annoying. But rolled through this one relatively quickly. There's nothing like playing this, though, in a real arcade with a trackball and everything. And luckily, some people have them out there. Locally here in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, there's Up Down, where they sell beer, so it's a barcade and all that. You get 16 ounces of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which is good stuff, I'd have to say. This time around, I'm almost exactly where I was before, and haven't died yet, so very good sign to start things out in this one. There's always that last hit. It does speed up. And then you get a much more boring look from the Atlanta Hawks look. I'm not even sure what the colors are. It looks kind of like an orange and a blue. I guess it's a really crappy looking New York Knicks color scheme. Very crappy looking. Maybe more like New York Islanders. But it makes you look like you're going blind. Accumulating some points here as best possible. And there's your infamous Scorpion who likes to make mushrooms poisonous. And the Centipede dive bombing you, which he's doing now. Oh. And it really looks like the Charlotte Hornets now. Teal with some purple. That looks really cool. Final score, 85-97. Yuck. So, but an awesome game and highly recommended if you have a Xbox 360. Yeah, I'm actually mentioning a fairly newer game system on the show, but because you can get arcade ports on it, in a lot of ways, that's the reason why I bought the thing years ago. Used, of course, from a friend at a discount price. So it's not like I went to the store and plunked down $300-400 on a brand new system at the time, or 500, God forbid. Yeah, that's usually how I roll with things. Buying brand new systems is kind of like, you know what I mean? So, and then when you have the option to play retro games like this, digital, download, whatever, it is a lot of fun. Let's make the switch to the 2600, and then we'll keep going the 5200 and the 7800. Yes, I have the 5200 version working on the Console X. The Console X, not the not the actual 5200 system, but I was finally able to play it, and the emulator works. It's so cool. So we'll get to that shortly. Nothing like the iconic 2600 version. Let's go. And you can hear the spider bouncing around. And it's, it's similar to Millipede, just less detail, I guess. And, the colors are okay. Mushrooms are all rectangles. And as usual, I can't seem to get the Centipede completely wiped out by the time it gets to the bottom of the screen, which sucks. I used to be better at this game. Occasionally I can be good, though. I've had a couple of good moments with it. Spider really jumps around in this one. It's kind of funny and awkward, and the Centipede, when it's on the final head, does appear to speed up, and guess what? Got to the bottom of the screen. I did it again. Gosh. Now we get the multiple heads. It's enough to drive a person mad. And right as I killed it, but luckily I made it this time. So, kind of a USA look here. Little red Centipede with blue mushrooms and a green spider for some reason. Cool. It's trying to be a grasshopper, that's why. Scoring system seems quite different in this game, because how could I already be at 6,700? Seems to be adding up a little faster, which is fine with me, I guess. Now we got the Minnesota Vikings look. You got the purple Centipede and the yellow mushrooms. Skull. Training camp is around the corner. I got about 8,671 points, so that's great. We're going to move on now to the 5,200, which I think is a little more, it's surprisingly good, actually. Centipede on the 5,200. This is a treat. This is an absolute treat, actually. It's funny how the introduction looks a lot like Centipede from the 2600, but here it is coming in 1982 for the Atari 5200. And the sound isn't working, so give me a minute here. Guess we're going to have to forego that. I'm not sure what's going on with this thing, but it's the system. The animation of the Centipede is fantastic. It's a lot larger looking. The screen is very blown up in a lot of ways, but it's in a good way, though. The movement of the character or spray bottle or whatever the heck it is very analog-like, like Pong. Very, very fast. I mean, the thing flies across the screen, and yes, it's analog-type controllers, because the 5200 is very, it's a very unique game system. And unfortunately, as the Angry Video Game Nerd and many others will tell you, the reason why the system failed was the controller, because it was innovative and cool, but it was insanely, fragile. It just couldn't handle it, and overcomplicated with how many buttons did it have? It had like a phone keyboard basically, which made no sense. Like a 10 keypad and the pound key and all that and the star just seemed kind of unnecessary at the end of the day. So, and now everything just went black on me. I am extremely frustrated with it. This console X is not working like the way I thought it was gonna today, so I'm gonna continue here. At least I was able to get to the Atari 7800. The 5200 though, you get the idea. Analog type control. The thing, the spider or centipede, doesn't move around very fast, but the animation is fantastic. Okay, now it's visible again, and I wound up with 428 points. Part of it is my HDMI is funky. I don't know. I need a new one. So good radio, huh? But you got the idea of the system and how the things play out. The sound quality is slightly better than the Atari. It's not as sounding, but it's still good enough as far as I'm concerned. We're going to move on to the 7800. I could either play it on the portable device or the, I don't know what I just did. That was strange. What's weird about these, the way you have to restart things and such. I hope I didn't just mess up things in this system. Some people know what they're doing, some people don't, but again, that's how it goes. We're going to get to the 7800. The screen just went. I don't have patience for this, so we're going to move on to the portable version. I was figuring I would play on this thing anyway, and it's kind of a fun version. 7800 version of Centipede, and at least you'll be able to hear the flipping thing. Centipede, yeah, it doesn't animate as well. Yeah, the animation's fine. Unfortunately, it's a much smaller screen. Hopefully, the sound effect isn't obnoxious. The mushrooms look pretty cool, to be quite fair. I like this version, and the character, it doesn't move around as fast, because sometimes the speed can be dangerous. That that paddle controller, what do they call it? Trackball style, analog style control can be, it's cool, it's neat, but it can be too fast and it can cost you. This is going fairly well, I'd have to say. It's a good version of the game, honestly. That's probably why they put it on this, this mini arcade toy here. And obviously the stuff goes, the shots. It's like one shot at a time, but once it hits something, the next shot can come. You probably already figured that out playing this. The colors are not as interesting in this version as others, I'd have to say, and the flea is actually very slow. So, in a lot of ways, this is like an easy version of the game. Everything moves a little slower than in others, except maybe the spider. The flea is incredibly slow. What you just heard was the scorpion doing its thing, and Centipede has dive bombed me. You just heard an extra guy. So I finally did something right. Easily the easiest version of the game. Easily. I'm actually crushing it on this tiny little thing. I'm not really crushing it, but compared to the other systems, I'm crushing it. Didn't help that the screen went black on me while playing 5200. Now it's back on again. I have no idea why it's doing that. This is going remarkably well. I almost said, whoa, the Centipede's going like 70 miles an hour. It's a change of pace here. Wow. Yeah, it's a little different now. And I'm somehow surviving. I'm just too good now. Okay, game over. 21,994. Okay, well, there you go. That's a good deal. So now the screen's back. I'm not sure if it's the HDMI or the system itself that is acting really stupid. And I'm getting a better version of this thing anyway, with so I could have Sega CD games and such. Games that I owned in the past and still own, but the system doesn't work because the Sega CD is very, fragile. Yeah, kind of like the controller for the 5200. We may even review some SG-1000 games at one point, or 2 or 3 or something. But we shall see how that goes. Mega Drive 32X? Nah. PlayStation? Probably. PlayStation 1. at the very least. PC Engine, maybe a Castlevania or a 1943 there. Speaking of 1943, I'm strongly considering that's the next game we're going to review. It's going to be between 1943 or Willow, both Capcom games, so it will be an NES Capcom game is the next direction we're probably going to go. I hope this review wasn't... I apologize for the quality of this review. It feels like a train wreck with the way this stupid system just blew up on me. Or, see, it's working now, but I don't know if I trust it going forward. What the heck? So... it even has Intellivision games. Wow. But I have an Intellivision. I do. Maybe we'll do some of those at some point, and especially games like Micro Surgeon and such. Probably not going to review Game & Watch, but I'd like to do Jumpman Jr. someday, Commodore 64. I'd love to do Spy Hunter if I could ever get that to work, because emulation with Commodore-type games is complicated because of the keyboard, so it can be a pain in the butt. The controls can be weird. Similar with, Atari 5200. Systems like that. Things get funny and weird. You wonder if you just blew up the whole system. That's what I'm always afraid of. But I'd like to go to fan interaction, but nobody reacted. So I'm very disappointed about that. I'm guessing because, well, you just had me talk about Millipede. So why are you asking me about Centipede? Because it's a different game. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. So this is probably going to be a very short review because of no feedback, unfortunately, at least not that I can see. Appreciate those of you that have followed and listened to the show. Please tell your friends about it, the retweets and such. It is insanely appreciated. Again, I deeply apologize for the kind of awkwardness of how things have gone here with this. I might try one more version. I might see if I can throw it in. I'm going to try with this thing, see if it blows up on me or not. Well, the sound's working now. Funny. I might actually go back to 5200 again to get a better version of it. I'm going to try Atari 800 quick. Maybe the thing was working perfectly a couple days ago. That's what's driving me nuts. Asteroids is another possibility I might go with. This thing has like 5,000 games on it, this Atari 800, so, and that's a literal number. Burger Time, we're going to do that one at some point. There's got to be Centipede on this, when you consider how many games. I'm still scrolling down just to get to Centipede, which is not exactly too far down the alphabet and all that stuff. I'm still in the A's. What the heck? I swear I passed it. Again, apologize for the awkwardness. Centipede on Atari 800. Let's watch the screen go black again. No, I hope not. Looks like it doesn't work. That's great. Oh, maybe. No. This is some random screen. It's a computer. It failed to load. Screw you. Yeah, well, that's what I get, okay? These weird, complicated... I don't know what I just did again. Because you have to press two things at once, which is really stupid. Just to get out of where I was at. Yep. Now there's fire trucks again. Literally a week ago at this time, tons of fire trucks came, and there was a fire, an actual fire in a garage not too far from here. Lord have mercy. That's kind of scaring me a little bit. Sounds like they're going in the opposite direction. Sorry for the randomness of my conversation here. There was Atari ST. Let's see. That's a computer, though. See if this might take me 20 minutes to get to the game again. Looks like it's moving a little bit faster this time. I'm guessing it's not going to work, but it's like, let's give it a shot. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to the 5200. There's Centipede, 2 versions of it. That is ugly, but 92? Well, maybe it'll actually function properly. Uh-huh. Oh, what is this? Looks like like an early 90s computer. Pretty. Nothing's happening, though. So we're going to retry 5200. Good, now I did this properly. Oh, boy. Sorry for this. Welcome to game reviewing, Joey, right? I've already done like 17 game reviews. You think I'd kind of have a clue here, but well, when you're working with retro emulators, they're not always cooperative, but I might get a better version. Still no sound. Wow. Anyhow, we'll keep playing this 5200 version for a minute. See how long I last. More than 2,000 points here. This is so weird. There's sound for a second and then it goes away. But I'm going to keep commenting on the animation of the Centipede in this version. It is outstanding. 1982, and I like the largeness of the screen and everything. It doesn't look obnoxious and like overdone. It looks great. I don't know if it's the emulator or what that's causing this, but probably. Oh, looks like I got a worse score anyway. We're done with the 5200 for today. That's all I got to say about that. And unfortunately, again, with no feedback, this is the end of this version of the Summer of Bugs. Will I go with another one, or will I jump into Willow or 1943? Unfortunately, with the lateness of the summer already, I'm probably going to jump into 1943 or Willow. Willow is a traditional August game that I play. Otherwise, I might squeeze a 1943 quick, kind of like a birthday game, because I got it for my birthday in 1989 at 10 years of age. 1943, I'm leaning that way, so more than likely it's going to be that one, depending on time and all that. 1943 for NES, and I'll talk about the arcade version as well. Really looking forward to that. Apologize for this review being a little bit funky, but at least I got to talk about more versions of the game than the other one. So, yeah. And there are more versions available, and I was able to dip into them despite the emulator blowing up on me a couple of times. So with that said, thank you so much for listening, and let's go with 1943. Game on.